Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Gamer Guide here, and today I want to talk about a very interesting topic. This is something that a lot of people, and Sonic tubers alike, have never really talked about or discussed when it comes to Sonic, but I feel the need to talk about it, especially since, I'm doing Sonic Rebound. The main comment I kept on seeing, on episode 2, and I didn't know if it was a compliment or not. I took it as a compliment, was when people would say, wow, this episode feels very much like an anime, or this feels like Naruto or One Piece or Dragon Ball, or the main comment was, this feels like an anime. And I'm like, hell yeah, it feels like an anime, because Sonic is Shonen. Now, for those of you who don't know who Shonen is, because I was pretty disappointed at some of the people who were like, wait, who's Shonen? Like, what the fuck is Shonen? And I was like, oh my god, you guys don't know what Shonen is? Shonen is a genre of Japanese comics and animated films aimed primarily at a young male audience, typically characterized by action-filled plots. So basically all types of action-oriented anime like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, etc. That's Shonen. And Sonic is very much like that. Now, I first got interested to talk about this topic when I saw this one guy, one of the people who follow me. His name is, his Twitter name is Tolu Popula. So he made a very long rant thread, and I'm going to read everything and I'm going to talk about it in my own words, but this is very important, and a lot of Sonic fans need to know this, especially people who are fans of the Sonic shows like Sonic Sat AM and all that. Now, I liked Sat AM a lot. I grew up on that show. I prefer it more than Sonic X. At least the English dub of Sonic X, because the English dub was quite terrible. But when we talk about Sonic's roots, that's not quite it. So it's kind of sad that a lot of Americans don't even know what this word means, Shonen, especially Sonic fans. Every Sonic fan should know what Shonen is, because Sonic derives from Shonen. Sonic is inspired by the Shonen genre. All these years, I've always said how Sega of America should be the future of Sonic's games. Like, Sega of America should be handling Sonic's games, because they seem to have a firmer grasp on what the game should be than the Japanese audience, since Japanese people aren't big fans of Sonic. Like Christian Whitehead and Sonic Mania, that was all done by mostly American team, but with Azuka as the head. So like even Sonic's finest games, with the exception of Sonic Adventure 1, because that was Japanese, but Sonic's finest games have been made in America. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and some would even say Sonic Adventure 2. So yeah, I could go on with that, but that's the story for another day. But when it comes to the story and the script, Japanese people excel in this more. So Japan should take control of the story, whilst America should take control of the gameplay. Now let me start by reading Tolu's thread so you guys can get a better understanding of this. He said, okay, Sonic the Hedgehog is not just for kids. It is for everyone. I am so sick and tired of people getting the wrong idea of this franchise, to the point that's what Sega thinks as well. Exactly. He said, I'm going to go over why Sonic the Hedgehog was never, ever just for kids, and try to destroy this mentality once and for all. I will be using the canon Japanese source material for Sonic, because even though he is more popular in America and Europe, Sega of America are part of the problem. Also, the fact when compared to the Japanese storytelling given to this character and franchise and manuals, dialogue, cutscenes, excerpts, voice delivery, and characterization and growth, the Japanese side carries it much, much better than the English, even though he's not popular. I mean, let's not forget Sonic Adventure 1 debacle with the whole voice direction. But I kind of feel for the English voice actors, because they didn't have good direction. They weren't given script ahead of time, which is why, the voice acting was so jank for the English dub of Sonic Adventure 1. He says the Japanese side carries the cutscenes much, much better than the English, even though he's not popular in the land of the rising sun. With that out of the way, let me give you the examples on why Sonic the Hedgehog is not adultish and not kiddish, but he's shonen. Sonic the Hedgehog was created to be Sega's new mascot, and the one to carry the company. Y'all know the story, but let me skip to the most important part. The original premise was pitched by the Japanese, that Sonic would be in a band, have fangs, and have a girlfriend. We all remember that. His girlfriend was going to be called Madonna. He had an edgier design, and the Japanese tried to convey that compared to other gaming protagonists like Mario, who was more child-friendly. Sonic had edge to him that made him a cut above the rest, and much more shonen-esque. I mean, he was not overtly adultish and dark, but he wasn't for kids either. Perfect blend. I've always talked about how Sonic has to be a balance of things. Sonic always reminds me of Spider-Man, how they both have to have a balance. Like Spider-Man, he cracks jokes, but the whole premise shouldn't be a comedy, you know? Spider-Man deals with a lot of serious situations and he uses humor to cope with it. Sonic too. Sonic is wisecracking, he can be cocky, but he's not an asshole, you know? He can be a little bit of an ass sometimes, but he always puts people first and saves people. He loves adventure. There always has to be a balance. It shouldn't be all this dark and gloominess like Sonic 06, but then again, it shouldn't be all slapstick humor like Sonic Colors. There always has to be a balance with Sonic, and it's been crazy how Sega has struggled with this. We haven't gotten a shonen style Sonic type of story since Sonic Unleashed. So throughout this entire decade, since 2010, Sonic has not been shonen. I mean, let's talk about, Sonic Colors was completely kid friendly. It was aimed at kids. The humor was childish and cringy at times. Now, Sonic Generations did have, for a video game that barely had any story, Sonic Generations had hints of shonen type of stuff in it. It had some shonen qualities in the game, especially like in the cutscene, you know, the fight with him and Shadow, or with him and Perfect Chaos, or Sonic and Silver. Those cutscenes had a lot of shonen vibes to it. And it's funny because there was hardly any talking to it. And that's what made me get the impression that, you know, Sonic is more of a badass when he's not talking. But because, I don't know, the people who made the Sonic Generations, they wanted to convey that same tone and badass style of the original games, you know, like the adventure games and stuff. So Sonic Generations, it has some shonen themes to it. And then Sonic Lost World was not shonen at all. The funny thing is the script was darker, but the execution was still kind of weird. Pontac and Graf just fucking things up as usual. And then we're not even going to talk about Sonic Boom. That's completely Western. Then here comes Sonic Forces. Sonic Forces is so weird because the script is shonen. You can tell it was the Japanese who wrote the script, but the lines, the delivery, the dialogue was all done by Pontac and Graf. So it was very weird and disjointed. You know, it threw me off. Like, what's that word? Discombobulated or something? You had a very dark shonen type of story, but the lines and everything were kiddish. It didn't mesh well. That's why when Knuckles was like, he's been tortured for 6 months, that was just jarring. It was like, whoa, what the hell, Knuckles? And I heard that was not even in the Japanese script, in the original script. It was only the American version, or, you know, the West. So they try to go overboard. That's the problem with Americans. They always try to, or that's the problem with the West. They always try to go overboard with the darkness, like Shadow the Hedgehog, you know, and the whole like, damn it, and all that thing. Or where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald? They try to be overly edgy, but they still come across as cringy and childish. I don't get it. So basically, what he said, now, this was until Sega of America believed that Sonic was too edgy and appealed to kids. So they ditched that premise and redesigned him. I'm not mad that they changed it because I'm frankly grateful that they did that. Yeah, I didn't like the way Sonic looked like before. But he said that he's mad that Sega of America believed Sega of Japan made Sonic too edgy to begin with. And he said this ain't the last. As we go through the games from 1991 to 1997, Sega of Japan would do things that Sega of America would constantly change or alter to make Sonic more for kids. Because the internet was not a thing, many Americans and Europeans truly did not know what Sonic was supposed to look like or supposed to be like. That's true. You know, Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, and 3 covers, I thought that's how Sonic is supposed to look. I didn't know there was a Japanese version with him, and that actually looked better than the way he looked in the American covers. I remember when I first argued with Husky Z about it years ago, I preferred the American version, but the Japanese version has grown with me, and after Sonic Mania, we haven't seen the American classic version of Sonic since the Genesis days. The Japanese looks better, looks cleaner. I don't even know why they changed him. He actually looks cuter in the Japanese version, so I don't get it. Now it says, number 1, Sega of America changed the continuity of Sonic the Hedgehog. Sega of Japan had a clear, consistent, and streamlined continuity and characterization for the games that screamed shonen like early Dragon Ball. Sonic the Hedgehog and company lived on a fictional planet Earth where anthros and humans both lived and coexisted with small animals, like Flicky-like animals, also living. It had advanced technology in mystical and surreal places, while also having modern architecture. The humans were there. So this is supposed to be like Dragon Ball. It had an early Dragon Ball feel and aesthetic. It was wacky and fun, but still carried an edge to it that didn't make it seem to be for little children. It was shonen. Because of the canon premise of Sonic's world, it would be natural to see hoverboards, hovercrafts, and hovershoes. Dragon Ball series did this as well with their futuristic looking cars. Carbon copy. He says, it was always like that, but then Sega of America, for some odd reason, decided to change the continuity, not only just for the games, but even more so with other media. Sonic now lived on a planet called Mobius, with no humans except Dr. Eggman, cause like, how does that make any sense? They were not even consistent with the continuity in the manuals. Because of this inconsistency from Sega of America, people that grew up on the American side grew up on a different version of Sonic. I am not in any way insulting how you were introduced and grew up with the franchise. I just hate the fact that Sega of America couldn't stick to the script. You know? It's true, because like, even like what I talked about, you guys should go back and watch my Mighty and Ray theory from last year, my Sonic theory in August. How the Americans completely changed the script of Knuckles Chaotix from the Japanese version, and I said in the theory, I'm going with the Japanese version because that is canon. The American version is not. The American version, Knuckles Chaotix takes place in Carnival Island, whereas Knuckles Chaotix of the Japanese version takes place on Angel Island. The Carnival is in Angel Island. It's crazy. The American version doesn't even mention the Master Emerald. It's called the Power Gem. So the American continuity keeps on changing things, retconning things. I don't know why. Whereas the Japanese continuity is pretty much the same. It's streamlined from the very beginning until now. It's the Americans that make things so difficult. You know, Sonic never lived on a planet called Mobius. It's Earth, just like Dragon Ball has Earth. Of course, Dragon Ball's Earth is not the same as our Earth, you know? So, yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't know why they did that. Now, he said, Sonic the Hedgehog was always shonen since the very beginning. Y'all may be wondering why I am bringing up shonen so many times. I say this because I'm not referring to Shonen Jump, which is Dragon Ball, One Piece, Naruto, etc., but I refer to shonen as the genre. Now, how would one even describe shonen? I have a few characteristics. Epic, multifaceted, young boys to young men, wackiness and fun, action adventure, comedy, memorability, triumph, overcoming it all in front of you, savagery, and total badassery. Now, try telling me that compared to others, Sonic the Hedgehog is not shonen. Sonic screams shonen all over itself, whether it be in the aesthetic, attitude, style, personality, characters, world, stories, tone, music, action, artwork, etc. His world oozes the spirit of shonen. The games couldn't have voice acting from the early 90s, the classic era, but the Japanese still were able to convey the personality of these characters and the tone of the story and world through artwork, animations, music, and the manuals. Sonic was a guy that didn't play by the rules and lived how he wanted to with freedom, attitude, and style. He was still a fun-loving, laid-back, good person, but not a righteous hero like Sega of America made him out to be. That edge made him stand out like other late 80s and early 90s Japanese heroes. I mean, look at Goku. Look how Americans made him look like a Superman type of character trying to save the world, but the real Goku, he just likes to fight. He doesn't care about saving the universe. I mean, he'll save his friends who live on Earth, he'll save people from harms and danger, but he doesn't go out of his way to. He's always looking for a fight. He values that. He will let a villain survive, not because he's compassionate or wants to give them a second chance, because he wants to fight them again. You know, and you guys know how Americans changed that when he was, yeah, there's just many instances where Americans changed Goku, and I'm glad they're now staying true to the original script, starting with Dragon Ball Z Kai and now Dragon Ball Super. Goku is Goku, because the original dub of Dragon Ball Z in the 90s was terrible. Let's be honest, they changed so much and censored a lot. Now, for all of you saying Sonic was never dark and edgy, he only became that in Sonic Adventure, I'm wondering what interpretation of Sonic did you grow up with? Sonic games since the beginning started off lighthearted in tone, but got more serious and mature in tone later in the games. Look at Sonic 3 Knuckles, for example. It was always like this with Dr. Eggman's basis. His effects on the environment, the bad features of Sonic CD, showing the destruction of nature and Eggman's reign, the final bosses and the Death Egg's threat to the world, Metal Sonic, Titanic Monarch, and the music amplified it. The reason why the people believe that Sonic is all lighthearted is because, you know, the classic games have no story, but the Japanese manuals set it up consistently, and they all tie each game together if you pay attention to the little cutscenes in the classics. Sonic Adventure and onwards were the same, just with voice acting, and they took it up a notch, you know, with the Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z style. Now, what is the problem? Sega of America didn't get the memo. Instead of carrying the shonen elements of Sonic, they actively made the series more childish, compared to the Japanese side of Sonic with manuals that contradicted each other in different continuities. Many people grew up with that, myself included. That's why many people are shocked that Sonic says mild swear words in Japanese Sonic X, like when he said shit. That's why many people believe Sonic's world shouldn't have guns. That's why many people believe that the mild swearing in Shadow is too much. That's why many people say Sonic shouldn't be dark, edgy, or serious, because Sega of America have not been consistent to the Japanese lore, storytelling, characterization, tone, maturity, and elements that make this franchise more interesting. You know, I have to also criticize Some Call Me Johnny. He also said in one of his recent Sonic videos that he thinks Sonic should always be lighthearted and take that tone. I couldn't disagree more. That's not how Sonic started out with. That's not how he should be like. And not to mention the poor localization of English voice acting that doesn't hit hard as the Japanese does. So that's why Sonic has so many actors in Japanese to this very day. I mean, they changed some more of the voice actors again in Team Sonic Racing. They changed Knuckles' voice, and I love Knuckles. They changed Silver. I mean, they kept Sonic and Shadow for some reason. I don't know why they still keep Shadow. I don't like his voice. I prefer Jason Griffith's Shadow, but they changed all the other characters. They continue doing this. They're not going to change Sonic and Dr. Eggman though, because they have been very iconic now, especially Dr. Eggman. That's why Sonic has so many voice actors in English, but still has his original one in Japanese to this very day. It's because the Japanese understand Sonic more than the people that know him more. Sonic's very niche in Japan, and yet they bring so much depth in Sonic. How ironic. And because of Sega of America's meddling, the community can't agree on what Sonic should be like because we all come from different introductions of the franchise. It's inconsistent, and that is Sonic and Sega's biggest problem. The inconsistency has been making it worse for Sonic. Now, don't get me twisted. I'm not some Japanese-loving weeaboo that believes the Japanese are better at everything. I love America, and I love American Sonic stuff better because I grew up with it too. Like Ian Flynn, he's an amazing writer that gets the character right. And I really love the social media of Sonic. But Sega of America have dug themselves a hole with so many canons and interpretations of the franchise to the point that nobody can fully agree on anything. That's all fan bases, sure, but it's worse with Sonic fan base because barely anyone knows about the OG source material. Because most critics and casuals also grew up on the American side. When they see the Japanese tone, they believe that is not Sonic and say Sonic is all about going fast, collecting rings, and eating chili dogs. So they are actively enforcing the idea that Sonic's demographics are only children and should be kiddish. So first, kids don't play Sonic. They play Fortnite and, first-person shooter games like Call of Duty. Second, from 91 to 2009, it's shown us that this franchise is targeted at young boys and young adult men, Shonen. So he said, I can't just say that everyone has to like the Japanese side. The problem is that Sega of America have not done a good job translating this character to American audiences. Dragon Ball used to do this, but now it doesn't. So why can't Sonic? Because it's funny, anytime Sonic tries to be like it's shown in roots, people are like, oh, it's trying to be weeaboo or it's trying to be anime and stuff, as if that's a bad thing. If this keeps going on with Sega and forcing this upon the franchise, then this franchise will not grow. It will lose people. The attitude, edge, tone, and storytelling present from the Japanese side from 91 to 2009, they'll all be gone. Sonic is not adult, but he's not childish. He is shonen. That's basically it, and I agree wholeheartedly with Tolu. What do you guys think about this? Sound off in the comments below. This has been a pretty lengthy video, but I definitely wanted to get this across because no one has ever talked about this. Everyone talks about the Sonic games, what Sonic should be, or how Sonic should be a lighter tone, but Sonic should be shonen. I mean, I don't want some dark, overly grim story, but I'm tired of the Sonic Color story because that's pretty cringe. So that's what I'm trying to get across with Sonic Rebound. I hope like by the end of next year when I have like 8 to 10 episodes, you can look back on it and say this is a very great shonen anime inspired series. That's what I'm going for. So what do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments below. And smash the like button, comment, subscribe. And yeah, as we're getting towards the end of this year, thank you so much for having me reach 50,000 subscribers. I definitely will be doing a 50K Q&A video real soon. So alright guys, take care, and until next time, swag out.